Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Elias Musha, and I am coming to you live from Calgary, Alberta. Today is Sunday, July 4th, and we do have very exciting guests that are joining us today in order for us to remember the life of Levy Sakala. I was thinking about having such a tribute broadcast the moment this unfortunate event happened with the passing of Levy Sakala, but several other intervening events, several other deaths came on, and we couldn't hold it. But as they say, there is always a good time for us to remember the departed. And I know and I'm aware that we have lost several people this time. And so it's not just remembering one person or two, but remembering several. And so today we are going to be remembering Mr. Levy Sakala of the Sakala brothers. I did try yesterday to sing along perhaps one of his song, which is Kalebalika. And so I am going to play that as I await my guests to come in so that we can do this. So this is Kalebalika. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika uwendo mutende Mwana Wandi, konsolea Kalebalika. Wikalaba itambishes, wikalaba kuno wafuma. Oh, Kalebalika nangu chibesha mushipikisha wakula. Kalebalika mwendo bakavya wabukele kwishiryake. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi chenjera n'ekyalo mushira mwab'ebindi mwab'amalwele chenjera wiyesha mapati ala alona olaila. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika panomperere Mwana Wandi, nemyaka tekwangala kukonka makunde nokutinalesi. Oh, way Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. May the sun shine every day in your life, my child. May your dreams come true, my child. Kalebalika, Kalebalika. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi, Kalebalika konsolea. Dear viewers, thank you very much for joining us here today, tonight. We are remembering Levy Sakala of the Sakala brothers. I have with me one of Levy's colleagues and one of Levy's friends, Saboi Imboela, who we are going to have a discussion to talk about Levy Sakala, his life, our memories of him, and his contribution to our country. Later, we are going to be joined by DJ Shosta. And you know, this thing with technology and everything else, he was here in this studio, but he fell out. And so we are waiting for him to come. As soon as he joins, we are going to continue our conversation. A little bit about Levy. Most of us are very familiar with who Levy Sakala is. He was born on 20th June 1971, and he left us on 17th June 2021, on the same day that Dr. Kenneth Kaunda left us. And so it was like two of the heroes of many of our people passed on the same day. And so here with me is Miss Saboi Imboela. Miss Imboela, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Munsha. How are you?
We could have been better. Several deaths in the past few weeks. Not easy.
Mm-hmm. Not easy at all. So disheartening, you know. So many people have died, and it just keeps on going on and on. You know, it's so heartbreaking.
Right. Mm-hmm. Today we are remembering Levy Sakala.
Oh yeah.
How are you doing? How are you handling the loss of Levy?
Well, the loss of Levy is a very, very big one, you know, on the music industry. You know, I remember the time when we were joining music, the Sakala brothers had already made it, and there were those people that became friends and mentors as well, you know. And as you know, that Barbara and I were singing as a duet, and even them were singing as a duet. So we had a lot of points on which we could relate, you know. To the point whereby, you know, crazy people like JK sometimes would even say, "Shut up, brothers," you know, coming from Sakala brothers. You know, and would call him JK's sister, you know, things like that. Yeah, so we related on so many points. You know, I remember the time we even started music, people would say, "Have you heard the harmonies of the Sakala brothers?" You know, so apart from the discipline that they had in music, there was an issue of also having that kind of perfect music, you know, good music that people really loved. And I remember my own mother, you know, the favorite artists that my mother had in the country were actually the Sakala brothers. So every time they would have like a CD out, I'd actually buy a CD for my mother, you know, and they knew that, and she would call them and they would talk, and she'd always appreciate their music, you know. So we had that. And for me, also one thing I liked about them, apart from them having been very good friends, is how they were perfectionists in the studio. You know, when you are with the Sakala brothers in the studio, you know that you're really going to work. You know, one of the things that Moses and Levi, for example, would say, they would say things like, people like to say that naenda ku studio, you know, so na bwera ku studio bwera kunchito, you know, lemekezekani nyimbo, you know, like respect the song, respect the craft. So they had that discipline, they had that love for the music, and I think it rubbed off on some of us, because when you're getting into an industry, I think it's important that you meet serious people in the industry that respect the craft that they have. And I can safely say that amongst the people that mentored me as an artist then to be serious with my craft were people like the Sakala brothers, and that is Moses and Levi.
All right. So you mentioned that you were collaborating quite a lot with them now. Were you under the same label? Were you sharing studio space? I don't even have an idea of what this all means, but
No, not really. First and foremost, like live music, you know, you'd have like shows together. So when you have shows together, you do have various artists, of course, and then there's an issue also of the studio. In the studio, you get various artists to sing for you. If you remember, like in the second album especially, there's a song that we did as Chateo called Sichava Saheso. Sichava Saheso meaning our country, our family, our nation. Where we got in different artists, the Sakala brothers amongst the people that we brought in into the studio. And then Chikondi Chamumdima, which I can safely say that is Chateau's, one of Chateau's most popular songs, if not the very popular song for the Chateau. It was written by Moses Sakala. So like, when you're having a work session like that, you'd call them to come to the studio with you to record that music, and also being the good songwriters that they were other theme songs that we had done, be it for independence, be it for which other one was this, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, like campaign time like this, you'd go into the studio together and do songs together and then send that to various organizations. So we worked together in that regard. And I would also tell you one thing, by the way. I remember in 2001, when we released our first album, which was Chikondi, not the Chikondi Chamumjima, but the first Chikondi, where there were songs like Chirumendo, Gentleman na Itopela. Gentleman was a very big song, and it was a song which even took us to the Kora Music Awards. Gentleman na Chirumendo, yeah. We had the first Kora nomination for the country, because by then no Zambian artists had been nominated for the Kora Awards. So Chatel and Michael Zulu, by then, we became the first Zambians to be nominated for the Kora Awards in South Africa. And funny enough, we were the first nomination for the country. But when we came back, Gentleman was one of the best songs for that year. There was Gentleman and there was Sandra Okawata, the Sakala Brothers song. So funny enough, when we went for the Ngoma Awards, Sandra won. Sandra won, and you remember, and when you're fresh in the industry, you've got this big song and you're popular and everything, you've got the biggest song on the market. First of all, you get upset. What happened? But we did take time. We did not let our ego or our pride rule us. Barbara and I sat down and listened to Sandra. We're like, okay, why did Sandra beat Gentleman? And we really listened, and for real, in terms of production, the song was very good. It was on point in terms of the production. So by then, the judges did not look at how popular the song was, but how good the production was. So what we did with that is that instead of us being angry, that's when we actually called the Sakala brothers to do a song for us, and that is how they wrote Chikondi Chamumdima. And as you may know, also Chikondi Chamumdima became one of the biggest songs and won us quite a number of awards as well. So that was a kind of collaboration that we've had with our brothers in the past, like in the music journey together.
Many of the consumers of music do not really see the behind the scenes issues, particularly that the Sakala brothers were a bridge, in my opinion. I think they were a bridge between the old Kalindula music and the newer versions. Now, I don't have names for all this, but I can feel it, right? So they built like the transition into that music, and so we see the product, but we really never pay attention to what is happening behind the scenes. How was Levy like? Who was Levy?
Oh, Levy was a very funny character. Levy was a very funny character. Where he was, you'd like laugh all the time. I remember like when we would have shows outside Lusaka, so you're traveling together in one bus. He would start by saying things like, imagine if we had an accident and all of us died here. Do you know what a big loss it would be to the country, Because, by then on the bus you'd have Chatel, you have JK, you have the Sakala brothers, you have Angela and Yorenda, you have like all the big names, and maybe you're going to a trade fair or whichever place that you're going to for music. So I'm like, what would happen? And imagine you have an accident, and then they say, for example, we're 10, then he would say like, 8 artists have died on the spot as Sakala brothers escape and hit. So every time you'd be in the car together, always come up with such things, to say everybody dies on the spot as Sakala brothers escapes and heads, So he was a very, very funny person. So where he
Right.
is would be a person that would bring out all sorts of things. So for me, I remember him for being so serious with his craft. Like I said, these are people
Right.
that really taught you to say, to be an artist, you need to do this. To be an artist, you need to do that. Don't play with your work. Also, sobera na nyimbo. Lemekezani nyimbo. Him and Moses, very serious guys. And when it comes now, when you're out of the studio now, the kind of fun. He's a person, but when you're with him, you'd really laugh like through and through. But again, I'll tell you one thing. There's something that happened when he stopped music in terms of the band together as the Sakala brothers.
Right.
People had never understood a lot of things that happened with that. It was more or less like just his what, when he repented and everything. He had always been a Christian, but at some point he had that so-called, I can't know the best, I don't know what the best way to call it. He changed again, for lack of a better word. Anyway, I sat down with him and I was like, why did you stop singing? I asked him that question, because for me, I don't believe that the songs you were doing were the kind whereby you'd say, Naleka vamuchalo, and I would even explain to him to say, it's like me. I've had many people, for example, tell me to say, stop singing this kind of music and do gospel. I've never done that because I've never seen anything wrong with my music. You get the point? Because when I sing a song like Naitopela, okay? Naitopela talks about teenage pregnancies and early marriages. I'm discouraging young girls from getting pregnant early and having babies and what is it, getting pregnant and getting married early and stuff like that. You get the point? So I was saying, these are social commentaries whereby you want society to live in a certain way. Sijabasahes is about unity. A country should not be divided. Let's be together. So I'd give them things like that. And then Gentleman, of course, is a love song. And I'll joke to say, even the Bible does have songs of Solomon, So in as much as we talk about everything else, it's important as well to talk about love, So I asked him to say, why did you really stop music? And then he explained to me to say, I'll be honest with you, I had an encounter with God. That's what he told me to say. But then I think we were with Catherine Kaseketi, Catherine Kaseketi, the film guru, So I had an encounter with God. I was, I can't remember if he told me he was on his bed or he was outside, but he was sleeping somewhere. And then he felt his spirit leave his body. Okay, I felt my spirit leave my body. And then I could, and then I'm seeing my body down, my spirit is up there. So when I went, I started pleading with God. Yeah, I started pleading with God, and I told him to say, God, if you take me back, I promise I'll never sing about anything else. I'll only sing about you. I'll only do gospel music to praise your name, blah, blah, blah. So he was saying, I started pleading with God. I could feel myself, I'm even bleeding. As I was doing that, the next thing, I woke up and, So it was from there that because I'd made that promise with God to say I'll never do anything else apart from gospel music, this is a decision that I've made. So he had that personal thing that we talk about. Okay, this is the situation, because people would be like, oh, why did he stop singing? Why did he do that? And I know that he had explained this several times on some fora, but I wanted just to bring this out to say, I remember we sat with him and he explained this to me to say, me and Catherine Kaseketi, to say this is an encounter, that I had. So sometimes people may feel that maybe him leaving the industry, whatever, it was more like he betrayed the industry. Like people would sometimes they like to use the word, you betray the industry by leaving, but I think it was a very, very personal thing and a religious thing or a spiritual thing that he had to take that direction.
Right. Thank you. Now, several of you, and they are asking why we are featuring you, Mr. Boy Imboela, because apparently as a television station, as a television channel, as a Facebook channel, we have taken a certain position politically. And I just need to clarify to our viewers that today we are celebrating and remembering Levy Sakala. We could have done it a little earlier, we couldn't. And so Levy had friends, and Levy had made an immense contribution to the music industry. And so that's why, out of respect for Levy, we brought several. And that's Saboy Imboela. And so we know that Saboy Imboela is a politician. She's president of the NDC, or to be politically correct, president of one of the factions of the NDC. But we are glad that she's here to try and give us a perspective about Levy. But in addition to that, I have DJ Shosta. Now, I know DJ Shosta that you have probably done more interviews than being interviewed. Is that correct?
Very correct. I interview people on a daily basis. Because of my radio show on QFM, I interview people almost every day in the morning, and I have that TV show that you watch that I do maybe once a week. So yeah, I interview people more than I've been interviewed.
Now, I must say that I do follow Zambian art, particularly the older one, right? The older music, more than the current one.
So you will have to forgive me. My audio is not very clear. I'm trying to pick certain things I can pick. It's not very clear. I don't know if you can hear me clearly though.
You are so clear. You are extremely clear. Saboy, are you able to get?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
but I can't hear you. Shosta.
Saboy, hi. How are you?
I'm okay, Shosta. How are you?
Good, can't complain.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
So one of the things that I see about your interviews now, you let me know whether you can hear me, DJ Shosta. Can you?
I can hear you. I have to. The voices are not clear, but I have to make out what you're saying. So just try. You can try.
Okay. So one of the things that I see about your interviews, particularly the watch on YouTube, they are very well done. And they are in-depth. And so when I saw you interview Levy Sakala, I thought that was a very good interview.
Thank you very much.
We brought it on TV Bakwetu so that we can get how you experienced that interview, first of all. I know that some of our listeners have not seen it, and I would encourage them to go to YouTube and search for DJ Shosta and search for Levy Sakala. But how was it you talking to Levy on that day?
To be honest, Mr. Musha, I've told my friends, some of my close friends, you know them, Magetu, Dreams, Shefi. I was telling them, like, the interview I did with Uncle Levi, I always call him Uncle Levi.
Right.
It's one of my favorite interviews because, you know, I had a set of questions I wanted to ask him before we started the interview. But when we got into the interview, like, he would say one thing that gave me a different question, and I went on that route, you know, like, he would say one thing and that would generate another question, then I'll ask him, then he would take me somewhere, and then he had like so much to share that I benefited, that a lot of people that follow Zambian music, the artists themselves, that, you know, it benefits them up to now. Like, he had so much wisdom to share. And I liked how, I know you've watched the interview, he came with the Bible on the show.
Right.
I liked how he was saying that the Bible itself was an inspiration to, and then he mentions names like Bob Marley, himself, as Sakala Brothers, and almost all the artists, because they drew the inspiration to create from the book, you know. And then he would explain it so well that I had not known him for a long time, you know. I probably just started radio maybe some 10 years ago, 12 years ago. He has been in the industry for, like, all my life. I've known Sakala Brothers.
Yeah.
So, and then how he could relate with me, like, I've been his friend all this time. Like, he made me feel special, and he made me feel comfortable, even talking about different things. So we had so much to talk about. I felt honored. I felt like I had been his friend for a long time when I had not met him for many times.
I think somewhere in the interview, of course, he explains his their beginning, the fact that contrary to what we had known, we thought that they were actually biological brothers with Moses, and they were not. And then he explained several connections that he had up to the time that he goes into music. But I found quite the part where he tells you that he leaves the group, and then he says that he's no longer going to be part of the Sakala brothers. I thought that was quite interesting. How did you experience that?
It was shocking for me. You know how it tells me I left Sakala brothers on stage. You know, he tells me before we went to perform, I mentioned to Moses that this is my last time, I'm done. Moses didn't really take me seriously. And then after the show, I just left and I went into hiding. He told me that he hid from Moses for 3 years.
Right.
And it was very shocking because you know how mature those people are. Like if it was these other young people, these other young groups, we would have heard about it the first day, the second day. But we waited maybe 5, 6, 7 years for him to come and review that. And it was very shocking for me how they handled it, because I mean he left the stage and then he went to do his Bible study, and then when he was done, he also took some time before he could actually come out in the open to share with us. It was very shocking, and that's an interview where even today, like we did that interview 4 years ago. That's an interview where even today, like when I sit down to watch that interview, it's very amusing. I'll say this again. Even when I was doing that interview, I said it on TV. Like, this is one of my very best interviews I've ever done. Even today, like when I sit down and watch Aish, man, it still takes me back. Like it's the first time I'm saying it.
Today, our dear viewers, we are remembering Levy Sakala, a musician and reverend. So he became a reverend, right? Saboy, did he become a reverend?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he became a reverend. Yes, Bambo Sakala.
Yes, he did.
All right. Okay. So then he becomes a reverend. He becomes a preacher. But from that interview, I do not see him condemning music at all. In fact, he was giving advice to upcoming musicians. How did you see that?
You see, most of the time we're in a space where people who have made it want to condemn the people that coming after them, or probably just bash everything that people that are coming after them do. But in that interview, I saw a person who's gone ahead, and in that interview tells me everywhere I go, I mention to people in Europe or anywhere that there are people who are greater than me that are coming, after me. And then he mentions that I am here to give guidance and to show that the guys that are coming after what we have done can do better than we did. And he was very particular in saying that the people that are coming after us should do better than we did. So the best we are doing right now is to guide them so that they can do better than we did almost everything. And he emphasized on creativity. If you go to that interview and follow it very well, he emphasized on creativity. He mentions that people should not just be going to copy and paste Nigerian music, South African music, or Malawian music. We should get down to the levels where we pick it down from Kalindula music and modernize it, and then sell it so that our industry can be rich. So he really was emphasizing on being creative. And he said that, Mr. Musha, I'll tell you this. There's a part where I asked him to say, was it hard for you to promote music when there weren't many radio stations and TV stations and these platforms? So he tells me, right now, it's easy for people not to watch you if you're being played on one platform. But back then, when you only had one platform, which I'd like to think he was referring to ZNBC, for you to be able to play on that platform, you really needed to be good. Because right now you can be trash and have a song and maybe pay some DJ on some private radio station, they'll still play you. But then
or you can start your own TV.
YouTube channel, yes. You see, you can start a YouTube channel, you can start a Facebook channel, or you can sponsor your song on Facebook, and a lot of people will see it. But then you really needed to be good. He told me about the Make One album where he says they had, is it 10 songs or 13 songs, and Zerembiso was only playing 3 songs because maybe they didn't like the other songs, which he said they were really, really good. Right. But Zerembiso was only playing 3 songs because those are the songs that they thought were really good and were good for the market. So he said that you really needed to have talent for you to be given the space on air back then.
So, boy, how did you receive the passing of Levy? Where were you? How did you get to hear of his passing?
Oh, it was very heartbreaking. And for me, that day, I received 3 funerals. It was so sad. First of all, I lost a brother-in-law of mine. My brother-in-law had just passed. Then I heard of the Kaunda funeral. Then I heard of the Levy funeral. I was like, okay, enough for one day. Enough for one day. So it was very, very heartbreaking. And also the fact that I had not seen him, I think, the whole of this year. I think the last time I saw him was last year or the other year, So when you have not seen somebody for quite a while, you really feel so heartbroken. So, okay, maybe had I called him that day, had I done that, maybe I could have heard something here and there, So it was really, really heartbreaking. And then I remember I called Angela and Moses. I spoke to them just to get the funeral arrangements and stuff like that. It was very, very heartbreaking because, like I said earlier on, and I like the word that Shosta used, and that's the word for wisdom. The Sakala brothers really, really had so much wisdom. They're very intelligent people, people that really have a lot of knowledge, about the music industry, and they were grounded. They were grounded in the industry, and they are just very, very responsible, mature, and very organized people. Did learn a lot from them, and I think the music industry, even when he became a reverend and the other things that he became, I think the music industry really had a lot to learn from him. So it was it was a very sad loss, for us as friends, and also the music industry as a whole. Very sad loss.
One of the things about as you have explained, Savoy, is there is a guilt that creeps up on us and say, you are not seeing this person for all this time, whether it's a year or 2 years, and that's very difficult to process, particularly for those that are close to us, right?
Very true.
How is Moses doing? Have you heard how he's doing? Have you heard how his Levy's close families are doing?
I saw so. Moses, I was actually talking about him yesterday because he should have been on this show, but he's not feeling well. Moses, I think he took it really badly. He hasn't been okay. Yeah, it has really been sad. It has been really sad. And then in terms of the close family, I've not really had a chance to talk to them after the funeral. Right. Hopefully everybody's okay, really. Yeah. And also with the issues of COVID now and everything, people are really staying in their homes, and we're not really moving about, mostly if it's people, it's just a phone call, you call somebody, you ask how they are and everything. In terms of seeing people, I think that has really minimized, which is a sad thing, really.
And of course, with the passing of the fact that we have several state funerals, and so there is that difficult thing. Yeah. DJ Shosta, how are you going to remember Levy going forward?
Oh man, how I remember Uncle Levy is a man who, like I said earlier on, even by the time I was doing that interview with him, when you watch that interview, you would think that I had related with him for a long time, I had not related with him on a personal level for a long time. That was maybe the third time or so. But the way he would treat me like is someone he knew, in the last 20 years, or someone who he knew contributed to his success. Like, he respected people. And you know how you know a good person is how they respect people who will do nothing for them, Right. Levy didn't have a lot to benefit from me, but he respected me like he had a lot to lose if we don't really have a good relationship. And I respect people like that, because most of the time we only respect people because maybe we want something from them or we want them to do something for us. Right. But Uncle Levy took me, or he held me in a situation where I started thinking like, I am this very important person, in the industry or just in.
All right, I think we are experiencing that. We'll bring back DJ Shosta later. How are you going to remember Levy Saboy?
Well, I remember him for his craft, how he had perfected his craft. I'll remember him for his talent, for his passion, passion both for the industry and for the music. He was a very, very serious person. And I also remember him for his sense of humor. He was a very, very humorous person. Another thing he would always say, I remember, again, was the issue of age, like every time we'd go to them and maybe ask him about something in terms of this and that, he'd always say, fast music. And I'll be honest with you, what you used to say, I think somehow happened to us, because up to some point when a lot of people join the industry and everything, they'll come to you and you find somebody maybe 5 or 6 years younger than you, they'll come to you and say, Auntie Saboy, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not so much older than you. And then I'm like, this is what Levy and Moses used to say, isn't this a cool number fast? Because even us, because you made it so early, by the time others are joining, they look at you because you're there and everything, and they have, of course, that respect for you. And so they start treating you like you're so much older than them. Eh?
No, the limelight ages people. The limelight ages. That's just the thing, right? So I wouldn't think that you are actually older than you actually are. Like
exactly.
Kenneth Kaunda, he became president at about 40.
Yes.
And so that was
exactly. Exactly. There are even some artists, like maybe American artists. It's only now when I look at them and say, okay, Angelina Jolie, okay, 4 or 5 years difference. This one 2 years. And then you're thinking, okay, because I started hearing them way back. They look old because I started hearing them way back. And then you realize later, some of them are just 2 years apart, 5 years. Yeah, so that's something which Levy actually made me realize, So, yeah, he was a passionate person, humorous person, a serious person, a lot of wisdom, and very spiritual, especially in the last years of his life. He became very, very spiritual. He was always searching, what really am I? Why am I here on earth for? So right. That I think, I pray that, of course, he's where he is supposed to be in the world beyond.
I'm a legal practitioner here in Canada, and you are artists. I think both of you, DJ Shosta and Saboy, and you are familiar with all the limitations we have in terms of copyright. And even Facebook itself does watch very, very closely whether we are violating copyright or not. But I couldn't just do it. I think there is YouTube. I'm going to play a song of the Sakala brothers, and that's Kalebalika, and then we're going to call it a day. I really appreciate you coming to share with us on TV Bakwetu the life of Levy Sakala and the way to remember, because we must remember art, but art doesn't just fall from the sky. We must remember the artists behind the art. And sometimes we celebrate art while it is still living, but it's in fact becomes much more powerful when, unfortunately, when it is dead. I hope, Saboy, we are not going to wait until you are dead before we celebrate your art.
I hope not. You need to do it now. You need to do so now so that I appreciate the works I've done. So that I know, okay, I did something at least for the country,
Yeah.
It'll be good. Yeah.
So here it goes.
Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika konsolia. Oh, Kalebalika. Uwendo mutende Mwana Wandi. Konsolea Kalebalika.
Now, DJ Shosa, in the interview you did, this is the song which he says he walked off on stage as it was played.
Yes.
Oh, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Tendera nejalo ya mwabeni mwabamalwele chenjela uyesha makrati ala alona ulai Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika. Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika, Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. Kalebalika konsolea. Oh, Kalebalika. Panomperere Mwana Wandi. Nemyaka ingi tekwangala. Kupanga makunde no kutingalesi. Oh, hey. Kalebalika Mwana Wandi. May the sun shine every day, my child. May your dreams come true, my child.
Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It was great being here.
Yeah. To our listeners, thank you very much for joining us today as we remembered Levy Sakala of the Sakala brothers. Good night, God bless you, and God bless our country. Vachasaya.
Yes.
I have seen you here. I was closing the show.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't do it without. We are remembering Levy Sakala. We've remembered Levy Sakala today.
You did so well. You did so well. I had a relationship with them for a long time. Actually, they played that song at my wedding. Hey. You know, you're talking 2003, and then the next year I worked to bring them to Canada at Afrofest, where they just wowed crowds. To this day, there's never been a show like that. So, first of all, I really appreciate you for taking the time to pay tribute to Levi. My second album, Wallace, was actually coined by Levi himself, because we were joking in the studio, I was singing, and then he said, Josiah, Wallace. And that's how I thought, wow, that's cool. So that's how Walasa, the second album, was born. We did a few songs with them. They gave me the privilege to connect with Mr. Mwape, 5 Revolutions. He played the guitar. So there's so much work that we did. And even today, I think there's never been such a group of accomplished musicians, in my view, who took Zambia to that level. So I really thank you for honoring Levy. I'm beyond words. I think we should be doing more of these things. But I know it's in the past, but thank you so much for doing this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bachasaya. Today, we've remembered Levy Sakala. He was a great guy. And we've received all this information that he was a very, very jovial character. And we appreciate our country for the art that it has given us and the artists behind it. Thank you, Bachasaya.
Thank you so much, Lance. Thank you. Cheers, Sumo.
God bless, and God bless our country. Kalebalika. Thank you.